Wonderful. Well, I'm Liz Millman from Learning Links International, and I'm with a couple of my other colleagues, Simon Faringo and Garrick Prayog. We're expecting one or two other people. We're delighted that we've got Colin with us from Preston Black History Group, and we've got forgotten already. A very nice little person with us as well, so that's great. You'll
Colby.
introduce him again in a moment. Toby, how can I forget? 2 minutes afterwards. Now, I did a little bit of research into your Preston Black History Group, and one of the stories that really came up was the Battle of Bamber Bridge. So, no doubt we'll be hearing a bit about that. Okay, then. This is really for you, Colin, just to explain what we're about. So, the three of us are from directors of an organisation called Learning Links International, and we manage these sessions. But this season, we've taken a different approach. We've been experimenting with different ways of talking about and discussing stories of Black history. In a way, I feel we needed a bit of a breather because we'd 150 weekly sessions with brilliant speakers and all sorts, but we just needed a chance to talk between ourselves and others who joined us. So we're looking at resources being created, research and the activities going on currently to explore what others around the world are doing to share insights and information about the Black history of different countries, as well as shared history of European colonisation. So we're also exploring approaches to reparations. So we're connecting stories, restoring voices, and building understanding. So that's what we're about. But I'm very interested now because I sort of started from a bit of a standing start in my knowledge of Black history. Learning that each country's got its own different stories of Black history, and that's really important to recognise. And then there's all the stories of our shared history. Right, so I'm in Australia at the moment, and countries where the activity where I'm speaking from, and I'm acknowledging it by a statement of respect. So I'm starting off by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which I am today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. And I think this acknowledgement um, of country is a very important thing here. TV programs have acknowledgement of country, supermarkets have acknowledgement of country. There's a lot of things being done. Well, it's about time too. Now, in Black History conversations, however, we acknowledge the injustice of the actions taken by the British and other European countries that invaded and took possession of the islands in the Caribbean Sea, as well as the continents of North and South America. In addition, we also recognise the exploitation of the great continents of Africa, Asia, Australia, and many other parts of the world in the centuries of colonialisation and ongoing exploitation. We acknowledge that this resulted in the destruction and destabilisation of so many nations, peoples, and cultures. And Jackie Pennant, a colleague who joins us from the States, suggested that we had this acknowledgement, and we feel it's totally appropriate. Okay, so a few formalities here as we start off. I don't know, Garrick, if you'd like to read this time.
Yeah, sure. Black History Reflection. Okay. In a world facing uncertainty, conflict, and great need, we pause to breathe, to listen, and to be present with one another. We hold in our hearts those affected by hardship, by storms, aggression, loss, by injustice and inequality. And we give thanks for the strength of communities who continue to care, rebuild, and hope. As we meet today, guide our words and our action. Help us to work with humility, wisdom, and compassion, and to honor the bonds of friendship that linked us. May our shared efforts be rooted in respect, solidarity, and peace.
Thank you very much, Garrick. We decided to put that reflection in because sometimes we have a prayer, and that's kind of like a prayer, but recognizes that not everybody has the same faith background. Thank you. Oh, right. Okay. The Battle of Bamber Bridge. I was fascinated. I can't remember if it's a TV program or whatever that I heard about this story, but Colin, we're delighted that you're joining us. We've also got a couple of other
Let
ideas.
me correct you, Liz. So
Oh,
Clinton.
Clinton,
Yes.
what am I saying? Thank
Yeah.
you. We had a couple of other Black History conversations, logo ideas. Anyway, I'm going to stop this now because Clinton, it's really you we want to hear from, to know about your Black History group and what you do in Preston. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Oh, hello, Vivian.
First and foremost, I'd like to thank the organisers for this opportunity, the invitation to present and to share our journey. As I said, I'm running with a domestic situation, so I ask for your
Just battle
patience
on.
and
It's all right.
understanding.
It's fine. Yeah.
For me, this journey started because I came to England from the Caribbean, as so many people did, knowing very little about our own cultural history.
Come on, Toby. Oh,
And
Toby, let's don't forget that. Look, Toby.
after a period of
Look,
success, after a
Toby.
period of success
Oh,
in sport, I then got to a point in my life where I thought, what do I actually know about my own history and culture? I know lots about the English culture, English heritage, English history. So it started as a journey of learning for myself. I initially started attending a local group which came together really just to put a program of events on in October for Black History Month, and then
yeah.
they disband and then come together again the following June or July, put a program together and go. After attending these meetings for a while, I thought, well, Black history is a living culture. You can't just treat it like a mushroom topic where it comes up, has a short lifespan, and then disappear. So I started agitating that the group should meet all year round. It should be constituted, and unlike previous, where it's had a few name changes, I needed it to have a stable name, which we ended up with as Preston Black History Group. So that was back in 2011. So within a short period of time, we agreed that we would have the name, we would be constituted, and we would operate 12 months of the year, again, on a journey of education and empowerment. And since then, we have moved on tremendously from where we started as a simple group to a group that's we're very proud of. We're very proud of the work we've done. We're very proud of the people we've influenced, all in a quiet, non-aggressive manner. Along the way, at an early point, we realised that collaboration was one of the big things. And one of the big collaborators we had at the start, and we still have, and we have a very healthy relationship, is what used to be called the University of Central Lancashire. They now call themselves the University of Lancashire, but we'll keep out the politics of name changes and likes of. And I can remember just literally walking into a professor's office and just saying to him, this is who we are, this is what we're trying to do. We know there are things that you are trying to do that we are better suited to do, and there are things that we want to do that you are better suited to do. And as simple as that, that was a formula that we kicked in with probably back to about 2010. And we still continue that relationship now. And it's probably one of the strongest university and community links there is in the Northwest, if not beyond the Northwest. So we're proud of that. Along the way, everything that we do is around education. But the health warning we give to people is that some of the material might uncover, you might find emotionally challenging. And if you're not stronger than what you uncover, it's going to cause you an issue. But in all fairness, to balance that out, I say to people, if you start researching your own family history, it's very possible that you will find things within your family history. Yeah, I'm going to let it ring. You'll find things within your family history that you'll find emotionally challenging. But you can't change the past. You can only learn from the past and look to go forward in a more positive manner. Along the way, we have collaborated with Lancashire County Council, Lancashire Constabulary, Preston City Council, Preston Police, the education system right through from primary school to further education to higher education. And we have a fairly healthy relationship on that ladder completely. And we're still working with various education providers to deliver things around Black history and culture. An important point that I missed out at the beginning really was that our strapline states that we look to research, preserve and celebrate Black history and culture, a shared history for all. And the for all is written in capitals, because the message we're pushing out with that is that Black history is not a standalone history or some sort of separatist history. It's an integral part of world history and should be treated as such. And that really it's almost too obvious a point to make. But surprisingly, we still have to convince people that it's a fact. It is an integral part of world history. We've delivered sessions on request from the prison system, the education system, individual groups, so the Women's Institute, Working Men's Group, professional bodies, the list goes on. We recently delivered to the Lancashire Authors Association about Black history and culture, and that went down very well. It still surprises how little people know about a part of English history that needs to be told and keeps being retold. So we move on very nicely with that. The group is an incredibly small group, and we just quietly go about doing our business. Yes, we've got a website which at the moment isn't being managed because we don't have the resources to do it in terms of manpower. But that will be corrected and put back on track, because your website's really the window to the group as we are. There's lots of projects we've done that we're so proud of, and at moments like this, I'm more struggling to work out what to leave out, what to include. So let me talk about one of the collaborative projects we did with UCLan, as it was then, or the University of Central Lancashire. We worked out that a lot of things that is written about Windrush and spoke about Windrush is Southern centric. So as a collaborative project with the university, we interviewed 11 people from the Caribbean, 6 ladies, 5 men from 4 different islands. And it's their story. So we didn't lead with questions that might have took them down a particular path or anything like that. We just opened the door, put a recorder down, and they spoke. And the trip backwards and forwards from the memories of being in the Caribbean, the early arrivals, the experiences they went through, and where they are now. And it's a pretty fascinating story for these people. we said earlier that every island has a slightly different relationship with England, and that really was the case with this. No, she'll be back in a short while. The book went to print. The book went to print. It was suggested that we put the book into the Allen Ball Award Scheme, which is a scheme that recognises community publications, and each year they give out two awards nationally. The year we entered, we were highly commended, which in real terms is we came second. But coming second out of the country on a first publication, we were well satisfied with it. So it's an award-winning book. That book is now in most of the libraries in Lancashire, and it's been sold to different outlets. The downside to what we did is there isn't an ISBN number for that book, so you're not going to be able to order it off Amazon. It can only be acquired through the group. So we are incredibly proud of that book. From the book came a request from the university to have an evening with the ladies. So a couple of years back, stop. A couple of years back, the theme was saluting our sisters. So we took the 6 ladies in and did an evening with these 6 ladies, and that went down brilliant. There was a performance stage area that we used that seated just over 100, and we worked out there's something like 3 empty seats in this area. And at the end of the night, literally we were trying to push people out the door to get people to go. It was such a successful evening. So that's a proper ego moment for which I make no apologies. You've mentioned the Battle of Bamber Bridge, and that's a journey I've been on now for something like 40 years, quietly ensuring that story doesn't get covered over by the sands of time or doesn't get corrupted by keyboard warriors, which is a modern plague that we have. And the background to that is that in 1943, American GIs were brought into Bamber Bridge as a transport unit. You must remember that the American military was a segregated military force, and that they didn't actually want black GIs with the skill and knowledge to use firearms. So they kept them in what I call menial tasks. So they were transport people, they did the catering, they did the ammunition runs and things like that. Because the concern was, if we train these people to shoot, when the war finishes and go back to America, the situation might change in a manner that we don't want. The residents in Bamber Bridge welcomed the GIs with open arms, because their comments were, these are people similar to us, not in the best paid jobs, not in the best paid housing, struggling to put food on the table for the families, etc., etc. And until such time as they do something that causes offence, we will treat them as one of ours. That message went down like a lead balloon to the American military, who still wanted to maintain segregation and discrimination in a foreign land. And effectively, the briggers just turned around to them and said, like, it's not happening. You can't tell us who we can like and who we don't like. They're one of us. The military also went through some of the social areas, the pubs, etc., and were trying to impose a segregated rota on the landlords, discouraging them from having black soldiers and white soldiers in the pub at the same time. And there's a famous incident with this were they'd gone into the Hob Inn, which is a thatched pub at the top end of Bamber Bridge, and presented the suggestion to the landlord. And within a couple of days, there was a blackboard, a school blackboard, placed outside the pub with the inscription, "Coloured soldiers welcomed." Again, that would have been so annoying for the American military. Everything was fine until one evening in June 1943. The American military were told that there's trouble at the Hob Inn, you need to go and sort it out. Now, that is actually in question, to be honest, but that's the narrative that's commonly out there. When they turned up at the Hob Inn, 2 military police, they stumbled onto a chap called Eugene Nunn, who was in the wrong uniform for being off camp. And an altercation started. The British locals and British service individuals on leave said to the 2 military police, "There's no need for an arrest. They're not causing any issues. They've been in here drinking with us. You guys just need to go." Eventually, the 2 military police went back outside, got in the Jeep. The version has it that a bottle was launched in their general direction, and as they left the Hob Inn, they told the GIs that this isn't finished. We're coming back, and we're coming back with reinforcements. And that, in effect, is what happened. So the pub closes just after 10. And as the GIs were walking back with some Land Army girls, the military police, as stated, came back with reinforcements, and they tried to effect an arrest at that point. And it all just went. It just went completely out of control at that point, and a fight started. And it ended up with a 5-hour gun battle between black American GIs and the white military police. There was one fatality that is generally accepted, and that's a gentleman called Private William Crossland. William Crossland was shot somewhere between his shoulder blades and his ribs. One version says he was shot in the back. We now believe that to be inaccurate. We're fact checking some of the other bits that goes with it. The soldiers went back to the camp and said to the other GIs who hadn't left camp that the military police are on the streets and they're just looking to kill black people. So obviously people got really upset about that and looking to preserve their own mortality. One non-commissioned officer, a black non-commissioned officer, actually started to retain and recover some sort of stability within that. It got to a certain point where they started to calm down and see reason, and immediately they got to that point, a truck burst through the front gate of the camp. The truck was built up as an improvised battering ram, and at that point, everything just went up. The black GIs then raided the armory, so we now have armed men wandering the streets of Bamber Bridge. But it's also on record that such was the relationship between the black GIs and the locals that GIs were seen going back along the streets, telling the locals to stay indoors. There's going to be fighting. It's not your fight, and we don't want you to get hurt. So that gives you a kind of an indication as to the relationship there was between the black GIs who suddenly found they were being treated as regular human beings instead of being treated as second or third class citizen in this foreign country. As I said, the fight went on for about 5 hours. That's officially recognised. After that, the following morning, the military was seen going back along the road, knocking on doors. The perception initially was that they were coming to see about the well-being of the residents of Bamber Bridge. The reality was they were coming to collect ammunition that had gone into people's properties. So that was the hard evidence from the war. 32 African-American GIs were initially charged with a variety of charges ranging from being in the wrong uniform to disobeying an order and taking arms against the commanding officer. The first trial took place locally at a place called Washington Hall. And once the locals found out, and we take information for granted nowadays, it's just the end of a phone or a computer. But the locals kept track of what was going on. And they pushed back at the system, saying that you can't try that many people in that space of time and there'd be justice. So effectively, they were accusing the American military of carrying out a kangaroo court. They really pushed back against the system, and fast forward to the end, there was 3 trials that were these men were subjected to, because with each one, people complained that justice couldn't have been served. Eventually, we fast forward to 44, and we were getting ready to go into Europe, and they needed manpower. So what the American military did, they went back to some of these guys and said, listen, we need your services. If you come back into the regular army, we'll wipe the slate clean, but you need to go into Europe as part of the invasion for D-Day. And that's what a significant number of the Black GIs did. There's a whole library of achievements of Black military personnel in Europe that is covered under a layer of dust, and that's another project for further down the road. Let me fast forward to 2013, and in collaboration with Professor Alan Rice from the university, we organised a 3-day symposium to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the Battle of Bamber Bridge. Along the way, we found what we believe to have been the last living witness of the battle, a lady called Eunice Myers. And in the church service on the Sunday that was dedicated to the anniversary, we had Eunice on the altar with the minister and just having a conversation. And even at that point, she was a mature woman, but she was this clear. She was as sharp as a razor, and it's almost as if she was still looking out of her window, looking down at this fight going on. So that was that. 2023, we set about, we had a 4-day celebration for the 80th anniversary. And we had a senior representative from the American Embassy come up and spend 2 days with us for that. So we had an academic event at UCLan. On the Friday, the Thursday night, we had a film show. Friday's an academic event at UCLan. The Saturday was the main celebrations for that. And then the Sunday was a service of remembrance. Along the way, we were contacted, along with Professor Alan Rice, by Studio Canal, who is doing a sequel to the story of The Railway Children Return. The Railway Children Return. And what they did, they parachuted the incident at Bamber Bridge into the sequel for The Railway Children. We were... We were used as consultants, and the final decision mechanism as to whether this film would be released or not. I was invited to London by Studio Canal to a private showing of what they thought was a finished product. And based on my response to it, they would either amend it or launch it. I thought what they did was pretty impressive. So the film's launched. It had its premiere in Keighley in Yorkshire. So we attended the premiere with some of the stars that they brought back from the original film and others that they brought through. So that's quite a compliment for a small group as we are. In fact, the producer for that, when she met up with the group and talked, she said, "Can't believe this," and she used the word "tiny" 4 times. This tiny, 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 tiny group producing work of this quality through that film is readily available around. So it was shown on Thursday night. So Friday, as I said, we had the academic event at UCLan. And on the Saturday, so along the way, we've had interviews with a whole arsenal of people. Some come to nothing, but nevertheless, we invested time to tell the story. One of the people we spent time with was a gentleman called Kevin from a production company called K Squared. And following the visit, Kevin said, "Listen, I'm going to go away and I'm going to write a play about this." So, yeah, okay, fine. Just contact me when you're ready, type thing. We organised this Saturday event for the 80th, and about 2 weeks beforehand, Kevin rings me up and says, "Clinton, I've done it. Right, Kev, what have you done?" "We've got the play, but we haven't rehearsed it, but we want to put it on." And it was like mixed blessings because we'd already organised 10 hours of activities. In fact, that's a lie. We'd organised 8 hours of activities for the celebration. But because of the effort he'd put in, I thought, well, I want to use it, Kevin, but all I can offer you is a shift at the end of the evening. He said, "I don't care. I want to do it. I want to come up, but it will be a red script." So Kevin and his team came up and they performed the play in the Methodist Church, which has strong links to the camp and the GIs. And Act 1, as I call it, took place in the church up to the point where history tells us and the military's told us, trouble at the Hobbin, you need to go and sort it out. The cast walked out the church, followed by the congregation stroke audience, and they walked the 500 yards or so back to the Hobbin and performed Act 2 outside the Hobbin. The entire evening finished at something like 3 minutes past 10. The finish time was 10 o'clock, which wasn't by chance because it was 10 o'clock closing in 1943, and that's the timing we'd set to. We had a minute's silence that was impressively respected by drinkers who came out of the pub to join us for this minute's silence, and we finished 3 minutes late after a 10-hour program. So again, another ego moment for which we make no apology. Present with us again was the senior diplomat from the American Embassy. He stayed the course, so we're pleased that he'd given up his time to do that. Following that event in June, we then was contacted by a military liaison person who said that an American battle group who were part of the defence of Europe had instructed them to contact us to arrange a visit, and they wanted to come up and pay this visit for it. So we set that up. The condition was we couldn't advertise it, they wouldn't turn up in uniform, but once the visit was done, you can do whatever you want with the information. The reason the visit came about was that I'm told there was a suggestion from an office deep inside the Pentagon that this battle group should come and pay a visit to Bamber Bridge. And they sent 24 active military personnel under the stewardship of a colonel and a major to pay this visit. Again, the reason that came about, we believe, is because in the run-up to the 80th, the event was in print in the Washington Post in America, and that generated a lot of interest. 4 locals were interviewed, and it went out on an American public broadcast network that claimed 46 million listeners to the network. So there's a lot of interest, a lot of publicity across the pond about the Battle of Bamber Bridge, and it still continues. We are in the process now of organising this year's event, which will be on the 20th of June. But the big one over the horizon is the 85th anniversary, a couple of years down the road. So we're looking to push the boat out for that in spectacular form. For the last 4 years, we've been going into local schools to deliver that subject to primary school youngsters, and we're now moving into high schools and further colleges of further education. So it's an ongoing story. It keeps developing a life form of its own. And the important thing to remember about this is only one of a number of projects that we as Preston Black History Group are championing. As I said, we're a really small group, but it doesn't stop us from being really ambitious. What you don't find from the group is finger pointing, making people feel guilty about the past. You know, your forefathers did this to my forefather. Yeah, we know that, but what can we learn from that to try and make sure it doesn't happen again? And that's the line we take, which is about education. Some bits might be painful, might be uncomfortable, but we're still pushing education. And that story continues as we speak now.
That's a good point to pause there, Clinton. Yeah. Because I'm sure out of what you've said, there may be some question
Okay.
out of that. So let's just take the opportunity to invite any question from what you have related to it, particularly around Bamber Bridge and the American GI.
Well, we've got Derek with us, great granddad, Derek Haynes, Bangor. Lovely that you've joined us, Derek. Thank you so much. And we've got Dr. Vivian Crawford joining us from Kingston. Prior to his retirement, Vivian was the executive director at the Institute of Jamaica. So I don't know. Do you know the story of this story of the American GIs, Vivian? Do you know the story, Vivian? You have to unmute yourself.
Not the way I would like to, so I listen. I'm prepared to listen attentively to what the story is.
Well, it's a fascinating story, and it's a story which really, really caught my attention because, and it's this thing about Black history's different in different countries, and the situation. I mean, I know our British Black service people weren't treated well, and people from our Commonwealth weren't treated well, but the Americans brought over their segregation policies that Black GIs had to be treated differently to white GIs. And so, Clinton, it rings a bell for me because I was brought up in Worcestershire and we understood that in our village, but I can't find any evidence of it whatsoever. But my Auntie Dora told me, and she wouldn't have made it up, that there was a Black GI encampment at one side under the viaduct, and there was a white GI encampment by the railway station. So it's really sort of come close to me, and I'm sure, well, our village didn't have to campaign, but you can imagine how that would have seemed in a white community. So I'd got this real empathy with hearing about this story, and then hearing how the community backed the Black GIs. And I understand as well from that one of the reasons that the white community liked the black GIs was because they were nice and polite,
Yes.
as opposed to the white GIs who were bolshy and, in ahead of themselves. So. Um, so that's my sort of comment. But Clinton, I have to admire you that you battled through that wonderfully, despite the support you were being given by Toby. That was incredible, absolutely incredible and fascinating. So yeah, and earlier you mentioned something else about that people in the community who are learning about Black history might have to recognise at some stage that perhaps their relatives were involved in colonialisation. And interestingly, my family on my grandmother's side came from Lancaster.
All right. Yes.
And between my cousins and I, we have some suspicious items at home. We have a silver biscuit barrel.
Hmm.
We have sets of 12 cut glass for wine, champagne, sherry, you name it, tumblers. We've got all this cut glass that we don't understand why we've got all this cut glass. And my grandmother had one story, and she talked about Lord John of Scale Hall. Well, we know that there wasn't a Lord John, but there was a John Woodhouse, and he lived at Scale Hall in Lancaster. I don't know if you know that area of Lancaster.
I'm familiar with Lancaster, but I wouldn't say I know it like the back of my hand.
Yeah, well, there's now a big housing estate, and the building was there. But then that got us, my cousins and I, looking um, at this history. But it just shows that anybody could scratch the surface and find that, their ancestors were involved in supplying or whatever. And another side of my family supplied salt to the Liverpool trade from Cheshire. They were from Cheshire. So,
Mhm.
yes, that was fascinating that you raised that point as well. So, I'm really very grateful.
The
Um,
thing about Lancaster is that Lancaster, unbeknownst to a lot of people, was the fourth largest
yeah,
slave port in England.
I had no
Yeah,
idea.
I,
No
yeah.
I,
idea.
stu I stumbled onto Lancaster because of from a professional angle to do with Wearing and Gillows. And Wearing and Gillows used to import hardwoods from the Caribbean and Brazil. And they've got a tremendous reputation as furniture builders for quality, etc., etc. It's now just called Gillows. I'm not sure the background as to all that. So that was my first intro. And then as the more you visited Lancaster, the more questions you asked and the more little snippets you got. So you then set about assembling the jigsaw. But yeah, it was the fourth largest slave import in England.
Yeah, very,
And
very
recently there was
interesting.
a huge debate within the council about, as there was in other places, should we change the names of some of these streets, etc. And because of my attitude to what we do, I said, no, it shouldn't change the names, put a QR code on the
Yeah,
street
right.
names, then
Yeah,
youngsters can know what it is. You can't airbrush
No,
history out
yeah.
of
no.
existence.
Right, now Vivian's got his hand up, Clinton.
Yes,
So
yes. Thank you very much, Clinton. I presume you are from Jamaica.
I'm proudly from Portland, sir, which I regard as the best parish on the island.
Good
Yes,
heavens. We're in
we
Portland.
all three of us,
sorry,
Clinton.
sorry.
Where in Portland are you from, Clinton?
My ancestral home is either flat grass or Scots rum.
Or?
Scots rum on the way to Haining.
Okay, okay, okay. I'm from Moortown, where Nanny's buried.
Further down,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation, but I hasten to ask, and perhaps Liz will join in this, whether enslavement is taught as a subject in the curriculum in the schools, because I noticed that Clinton has been visiting and teaching about where we're coming from. And I say this because Lord Anthony Gifford, he told us, he went to Winchester High and then on to Oxford, but he was not taught about enslavement. and he went to a conference as an adult lawyer in Abuja. And when he heard about enslavement, it was a week of presentations. He cried. And even as he was speaking with me, he was emotional because he gave up all his title in the House of Lords to come to Jamaica to help us. He's part of our reparation council. He has been here, but he went back to England. And he said they were not taught that subject. I want to know if it is on the curriculum, because Alex Renton on this program made me, I was very emotional. He said that to justify enslavement, Europeans said that Africans were half animal and half human.
That's those sentiments are quite common. What they do teach about slavery is they cherry pick through all the bits and try and portray them. The Europeans portray themselves as saviors of these uncivilized foreign people, and what we brought to them. So we brought Christianity, we brought civility, and all that sort of thing. But then the contradiction is that it's widely accepted that Africa is the birthplace of civilization, but you still have this system that doesn't want to change to face up to the reality. The most advanced place that I'm aware of is in Wales, and I can't speak of the quality of what's delivered, but it's a mandatory subject.
That's
in
correct.
Wales,
Yeah.
Wales now. I've no real cause to interrogate at the moment. There's only so much you can take on, but at least it's a step in the right direction. In England as a whole, we're still playing at it.
Yeah.
Glasgow has started to take a little bit more of a positive step in recognising that their part within the slave trade, which is largely through tobacco
and they've made the apology publicly.
Yes,
yeah.
And the university, if I can remember rightly, the university put about 20 million up as some sort of an apology, but they didn't just hand over a brown carrier bag full of money to people.
No.
What they are, in terms of bursary, as I understand it, for students from the countries that contributed to the city of Glasgow.
And that has to be credited to our good friend Sir Jeff Palmer, the work
Sadly
that
no
he has
longer
done
with
in
us.
Scotland, all these years to achieve that.
Yeah, so
Sadly no
wonderful.
longer with us is proper a real miss.
Yes.
Yeah, I knew, and Garrick knew Jeff Palmer really quite well. And yes, it's a real tragedy, but he did some wonderful work and he left us with some really powerful and positive ways to move forward. I'm just going to say that we've got Derek Hange with us at the moment, and Derek's the governor of a school in Bangor, Ysgol Glamkeggin.
Yeah. This is
And
North Wales, Clinton, North Wales.
Yes,
North Wales. Okay. And one of the things that people in Bangor are very aware of is Penrhyn Castle. And so there is a dictate in Wales that all schools have to teach Black history, but the Black history has to be researched first. So, Derek, I don't know if you want to say anything about it, and you're going to meet Garrick tomorrow morning to be talking about going over to Jamaica, because we're doing a project which is about teaching people about their Black history by building bridges of friendship with Clarendon, Jamaica. Derek, do you want to say anything? You have to unmute yourself, though.
That's it. I know that what I really want to do is thank Clinton for his presentation, because what I really got out of that was it was the local people
Yeah.
that set the whole thing off. It wasn't the Black people that set it off. It was the local people that set the whole thing off, and that's I don't know, it's typical Northern people. You know, they don't bother what the people in the South Wales, what in London tell them to do. They just do what they like to do, and it's an attitude that still prevails. You know, but what we want to do is go over to Jamaica and get hold of get some of the schools there to tell us exactly what they teach, and we want to try and get into the schools to tell them what we do, and we want to find out what they need to know from us, or what need us to know. So it'd be an idea that, you know, that we know the people, or we know a few people in Jamaica, but we don't know the youngsters in Jamaica. And that's what we need to do.
And Clinton, there is a link now established through the work that Liz just mentioned, the building bridges of friendship, the shared history. There's a direct link now with 6 schools in North Wales,
Yeah.
paired with Clarendon, and we're moving towards the council twinning. There is a provisional. I think it said within 5 years. I think we're in the second or third. Within 5 years, Bangor City Council will twin with Maypen in Clarendon, and those civic links will bring more educational connections across the 2 countries, because in Jamaica, although many people have Welsh names and Scottish names, they don't have the history.
No, I think you're right in what you're saying, because I've got a strange mixture, because I can trace my family lines, were I to invest the time in it, back into Scotland.
Yes, yes.
But also on the other side on my mother's side, her mother was a Shrouder, so that's Dutch. So I've got this real strange mixture that is fascinating. The trouble for people like me is I'm too busy doing what I'm doing to look at my own interests, which I see is.
But what you're doing, and I'm interrupting here, Clinton, but what you're doing is so important, because the schools locally will relate to this story of Black history, and
Yes.
it's a door into the wider history, because the wider history of Black history in the UK and colonialism is a really hard thing for children to take on board. They can know it, and I know nowadays that there's textbooks and school books and lots of good teachers across the UK who try to introduce Black history into the curriculum, but they often don't know enough. But if you can engage schools with a local story, which is what we're doing in North Wales with Penrhyn Castle and the Pennant family and the plantations in Jamaica. Or we had another project where we were looking at the use of Welsh wool for clothing, for cloth that was used for enslaved workers. And that really began to get into communities in mid Wales where you wouldn't expect Black history to be talked about at all.
Yeah.
And I think when you can personalize and sort of localize it like this, which is why I think the fact that we've invited you to come and talk, and we know we're talking about British Black history stories here, but there's always the link across both to Africa and possibly the Caribbean. And what you're doing is brilliant. And my last point is that you've got a good relationship with your university.
Yes.
How fantastic. We have got a really, really unsatisfactory relationship with our university. We get on fine with the archives, but we have a university in Bangor that doesn't have one academic specialist with an interest in this story. Can you believe that? They're interested in all manner of other things,
Yeah.
but they're not interested in this enormously important local story. It's just unbelievable. And they've got a unit which is a unit of Welsh estates, something to do with Welsh estates, but only the Welsh estates that are in Wales.
Yeah,
Not the Welsh estates that were in Jamaica or in other
Yeah.
parts of the world. So yeah, it's really
it's ironic
interesting.
because I went to a conference at Bangor. Again, I'm going back probably
Oh,
8-ish years ago. And that's
yeah.
where I first stumbled onto the Penryn story. And that was around that subject. But it was a one-off conference. A lot of places have conferences that tend to be themed and there's continuity. That was just one-off. And I can't really remember how I stumbled onto that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's ironic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
in fact, Clinton, you know, the relationship with your university is good, but you know, you have a website where people can find that information. And you know,
Okay.
people can actually, you know, there's a resource there because you know, if you go on your site, there's a resource. And similar, you know, but if you go on the University of Bangor website, you don't get anything relating to history. You get all the academic subject matters, etc.
Hmm.
And you know, and again, even the composition of the teaching staff, right? The composition, and I've been several times to look at the academic staff. You know, you don't see that diversity within the university. And as Liz says, they're not interested in history. And if they are, it will be Second World War history, British history, etc.
Yeah,
interesting.
you know, there's another ego moment I'd like to share with you, which is a local primary school. The curriculum for this year just gone, so we're talking September onwards, was World War One. This teacher went out on a limb and said, no, because the school is located really about 200 yards from where the camp was. And she said, I want history for these youngsters to be relevant. So she brought us in to talk about the Battle of Bamber Bridge. But she'd gone out on a limb. The school head was bold enough to back her decision, the teacher's decision, to talk about World War II and in particular the Battle of Bamber Bridge. And they wrote this little play around World War II, but the core of it was the Battle of Bamber Bridge. And I can't really describe how successful that was.
Mm-hmm.
But what they actually did at that point was they brought in the education director for the Diocese of Blackburn to witness the presentation. They brought in local councillors to witness the presentation, and they invited the school family to come in and see what the youngsters were up to. I'm so proud of that. Not my achievement, the achievement of the school teacher. And I've never really questioned where she got her motivation from for doing that. So sorry, I don't very often go down ego moments, but when something like this happens, you've got to give recognition. We are now due to meet with the teacher again next Thursday, and we are looking at bringing.
Your face is so blue.
My face is so lifting that performance that they did and making it part of the centerpiece for the anniversary event in June. So I'll go
Yeah.
off my legal pedestal now and return the conversation
Well,
back.
I think that's fantastic to hear what you're doing. And when I was last in Penryn Castle, there was a group of school children. I
Blue
thought,
now.
this is lovely that local school children are coming and learning about the history.
Yeah.
And they come from miles away, absolutely in England somewhere.
Yeah.
They come over the border to the castle because it was a good place to tell the story of Black history. And that was I thought that was just incredible.
Mhm.
I just welcome Ivor.
Mm-hmm.
Ivor's joined us from the little community of Pennants. Well, it's not that
Yes,
little, the
yes.
district of Pennants in Jamaica. So Ivor, welcome.
Yes,
It's great
thank you for
you've
welcoming me.
joined us.
Everyone. Good afternoon.
Right, Ivor, we were talking yesterday when we had our Jamaica Wales Alliance meeting, and we're getting ready to book our flights out. But Ivor and his wife Isint, and four other people from the community, three young people, came over to North Wales, sponsored by a Welsh Government project to encourage international links. So that was a great opportunity, Ivor. So we're really pleased that you're with us, and
Mhm.
it's
Good
great that
education,
Lily is
good
too.
education. Yes, learned a lot.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. Well, Clinton, can we express a big thank you for, coming along and presenting to us, and letting us share your stories of Preston. As I said in previous email, you're welcome to come back if you wanted another focus, a different focus on some of the other work that you might be doing. You're welcome to come back and share that with us. But the idea is that we're doing a little travel around the UK to connect with local Black history groups and just seeing what they're doing.
And
No,
learn one from another, I think,
Yes.
Garrick. And I think one thing I've learned from you, Clinton, or thought you were talking, is maybe we should have a local history group.
Yeah.
We tend to be the North Wales Jamaica Society, and we do all the shared history stuff, but maybe a local history group,
Mm.
and we could look at other aspects of local history, but always keep this on the agenda. I don't know what you think about that, great granddad Derek Hange.
Well,
Mhm.
in this area during the Second World War, there wasn't so many black people here, but what we did have mainly was Polish people.
Mhm.
So,
Oh,
yeah, so we've
right,
had hundreds of Polish people. There's Polish surnames are very, very common in North Wales, especially
Ah.
around Bangor and Anglesey. So we,
right.
we developed a very good relationship with the Polish people, but we didn't have the influx of American GIs in North Wales because they didn't actually come here.
Yeah. There were more in Liverpool. They had quite a few in Liverpool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Well, they were all over the country if they got to my little village in
Yes.
Worcestershire.
yeah,
And
Yes. Yes.
I mean, your area and Bamber Bridge is only a small community,
yeah.
um,
Yes.
so were well distributed.
Yes.
Absolutely fascinating. Thank you for
Yeah.
saying the thank you, Garrick, but
Yeah.
I'll pass my thank you on as well, Clinton.
Yeah. Sure.
We'll
Sure.
stay in
Sure.
touch because we can really, I think, network. We'll contact the lady from the archives and ask
Yeah.
where she's got to, and we
Yeah.
really want to pick this thread up again. So to hear about your stories of um, one of your many stories, I'm sure you've got more stories that
Yeah.
you've got in Preston with your community as well. So yeah, well done for that. It's
Mhm. Mhm.
excellent.
no, massive thank you for the invitation. I hope it's beneficial, and I certainly have a desire to maintain these links because one of the things, similar to you mentioned it before, one of the things I try and do is to sort of build a web, if only for practical reasons, because there's no one particular group that's resource rich, and there's
Mm.
no point trying to recreate the wheel when there's somebody within close proximity that already has a wheel that you can piggyback onto
Yes.
and shorten that learning thing. So for me, the bridge is in place now. It's entirely up to us how much traffic flows across that bridge and in which direction.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm just quickly looking and seeing what else I'd picked out and put on my PowerPoint today, and I just want to share a couple of other things. So that's wonderful, Clinton. And yes, we can be inspired and learn a lot from you, I think. Apparently, it's the International Day of Remembrance for the victims of slavery and the transatlantic trade, and that's Monday, the 25th of March. So I don't know if you know of things going on, Garrick, or anyone else.
Yes, I do know of that date. I'm committed on that day for something else, but yes.
And I was just going to show you this picture again, and this was a picture from a dance night in that
Oh,
you
yes.
wrote it about the Bamber Bridge story, and you can see a lady there having a good time, and some of the black GIs. Wonderful. Then I found this about Wales because I was trying to work out what our next project might be as we're moving on with our building bridges of friendship, and I wanted to know what the link was between Gladstone and North Wales, and all
Oh,
Gladstone. The Gladstone family did live in North Wales, and they've
yes, yes, I knew that. Yeah.
and Gladstone is there moving. He'd been the Prime Minister of the UK, and he took his entire collection of 30
32,000 books.
books in a wheelbarrow, so many at a time, to this new library that he'd had built, and I think that's something that really we could follow up, because the Gladstone family were one of the biggest slave owning families in
Yes, yes,
In,
and Guyana.
in Holland Bamboo, St. Elizabeth.
yes, yes.
Holland
Please,
Bamboo,
Yeah,
St. Elizabeth. Yeah.
that's right.
right. So it's interesting that that's another local history story in Wales, and they are picking up these Black history stories that have been told in Wales. Um, we last week we had Joan Grant on the session. She came in a couple of times, and her book, it's not Notting Hill, it's Ladbroke Grove,
Yeah.
tells stories about the black people who came in there, and he says she goes back right to the 1870s and perhaps before, on who'd been living there.
Yeah.
And then I found this book as well, which we could do
Kate
with from
Doddington.
Kate Doddington's book on the bonds of family. Now that's something else we've looked at. We've got a researcher looking at the names on the slave registers. That's what they're called, the slave registers in Bangor archives of the Pennant family plantations, and looking at how the threads of family move through there. So I think that's mainly things that I just wanted to
Yeah.
share, just to is there anything else anybody else wants to add? So, Vivian, do you want to come in with anything else?
Yeah, I always mention that when I go to Trafalgar Square and see the memorial to Nelson, I'm
Yeah,
sure it was never on the curriculum that had it not been for Cuba Cornwallis,
yeah,
lady from Port Royal, who, when Nelson returned from Nicaragua, he was willed to return to England. He was sick, sick, sick. And this lady nursed him to perfect health. And he was so impressed when he returned to England. He invited Prince William, Sailor Prince, to Jamaica. And the space where Prince William stayed, then called a hall, now called the Institute of Jamaica, established in 1879. That Cuba Cornwallis might be forgotten as though she had never been. But when William became king, it's fortuitous, that was the gentleman who signed the act for the abolition of slavery, 1834. And he fell in love with Jamaica so much that there's a street in Spanish Town named after his wife, Adelaide. But these are stories, perhaps, are not dramatic, so they are still under the bushel. But from time to time, we must share them.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that's really valuable and it's a lovely
Yeah.
story to share.
Yeah.
So Clinton, with your Jamaican background, this is what we talk about. We meet on Thursdays as a Jamaica Wales Alliance, and it's about this building bridges of friendship because we've got this very, very obvious link between the Pennant family, Lord Penrhyn's as was, and the community of Pennants and other areas in Clarendon. So we've got ourselves a little logo now, and we're looking at that. So that's what we're up to at the moment. So, and this is just so that you know, you've been to Bangor, but you might not have been to Penrhyn Castle. This is the enormous folly that was built um, when um, when the third generation after Gifford Pennant arrived in Jamaica in 1655, and then his son and his grandson it was who came back to, well, he didn't come back to Wales because he was born in Jamaica. So and that's the slate quarries where they also invested money that was generated from the plantations in their plantations in Jamaica. But it was interesting to know that the Gladstone family were the largest slave owners in Jamaica, and their compensation payments were just out of this world. Okay, so just wanted to share that with you because you're also very welcome to take part in our link meetings with Jamaica. We do those on Thursdays. It might be easier without Toby. Anyway,
No,
that's great.
there's a fighting chance. It's just Fridays that's ring fence for these guys.
You've
So
done
yeah,
so well. You've done so well. So, Grandad Clinton, thank you very much indeed. Are these your
you
grandchildren?
can say goodbye to Sleddy.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye, darling. Bye-bye.
Bye
And
bye.
my
Bye
parrot's
bye.
here. My parrot's here and he's saying bye-bye as well. We hope we kept you entertained a little bit.
Bye bye.
Oh, that's so
Okay.
lovely. Well, children need to be
Yeah.
involved in these things. We're passing on the baton.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right then.
All right, Derek, I'll see you in the
I'll
morning.
see you in the morning about
Okay.
9:30.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, okay then.
Take care
So,
then. All right. Bye-bye now.
Eric, I could do with talking to you in a minute, so I'll phone you up. All right.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Toby. Thanks, Clinton. Bye. Thanks.